Welcome to ATD, the All Things Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Merrill. Welcome to the All Things Divorce podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Merrill. We have a very special guest today, someone I've admired, someone I've talked to often, and someone I'm intrigued by their path to where they got, how they run their firm, and we have very like-minded thoughts that we post on LinkedIn. Without further ado, we have Marco Brown of Marco Brown Family Law, Brown Family Law. He's a family law attorney in Utah. He's expanding beyond Utah. He has a great story to tell. He has a very interesting background that's very different than most people. And I want to get into that, but welcome aboard, Marco. Good to have you.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So let's talk about who you are for the people that don't know you, which are few and far between, because I know how famous you are in Utah and you're expanding into other states, and your LinkedIn presence is something I'm envious of, and I like LinkedIn a lot too, so that's saying something. But let's talk about your background, because your story is such an interesting one, where you came from, how you got to where you are. Give our audience a little idea of where Marco Brown came from and how he got to where he is today.
So I grew up in Cold Bay, Alaska. Cold Bay is a little tiny village of 85 people on the Aleutian Peninsula. So it's out in the middle of the Bering Sea, just out in the middle of the ocean.
85 people, right? That's not 8,500 or 85,000. No. 85 people.
85 people. Okay. So my dad ran a salmon hatchery out there, and my mom was an air traffic controller. And that's just, that's where I grew up. And it was a great place to grow up. I hunted and I fished. I played with my dogs all the time. Like, I rode three-wheelers around. We took guns to school, Wow. And it was just, it just what it was. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was there until I was 13. And a lot of who I am is based on that, right? The foundations are really based on
that. That was my next question. So tell us.
Yeah. So, for example, two things. One, politically, guns. I don't understand why people don't love guns. I adore them. Like, I don't get it. The people in the lower 48 freak out about guns. I'm like, why does anybody freak out about guns? So that's kind of one thing. And then the other is, I was just alone all the time, as you can imagine, in a village of 85 people, with my own head. Like, I would just go explore. And, when you're alone that much, and you think, you're just sitting there thinking, and you're with your own thoughts, then you just tend not to have anxiety. The problem with one of the problems with kids nowadays is they're literally never disconnected from something. So they don't sit around with their own head and figure their own head out. So they have all this anxiety. So I never had that sort of thing. But also, I got to know myself and how my brain worked really, really well. And that's been really good for me as a litigator and as a lawyer.
Yeah.
So that was Cold Bay. I went to high school. I hated high school. I was not a good person in high school. Those are not good
either.
Yeah. So I dropped out and eventually took the GED, and then went to college after that, and kind of really turned it on in college. Ended up living in Italy for a couple of years. I'm Mormon, so I served a Mormon religious mission over in Italy.
Sure.
And then after I came back from that, I was an adult. Like, that's when I really became an adult. And then, I got married a few years later and went to law school, and now I'm here.
Did young Marco ever envision being where current Marco is today? Like, did you have aspirations of being a lawyer? Like, did you know what you wanted to do, running your own business? Was any of this even on the radar when you were younger, or at least growing up?
Kind of, sort of, but not at all. So my grandmother was the smartest woman that I have ever met. And she was a professor. So she had a PhD when women didn't do that sort of thing. So I knew that I was going to be like my grandmother in the sense that I would do some professional job. So I was going to be a scientist, a dentist, a lawyer, a doctor, a physicist, something along those lines, right? But I didn't know what that was. And then eventually, after a while, I figured out that lawyering was the deal. Like, it's just how my brain worked. I can think like a lawyer. I always knew I could think like a lawyer. and it just made sense in my head. It's just not
Right.
terribly difficult for me,
Right.
right? So then I decided to go to law school, but I remember this discussion I had with my wife before we decided to go to law school. And even before that, it was when we were dating. I told her how much money I thought I would make, and it was a certain number. and and I now make essentially 20 times that number,
Right.
right? And it was like the max I ever thought I would make. And
Right.
she was cool with that because she grew up in the Air Force, so she was fine with it.
Yeah.
But so no, I mean, yes, in the sense that I knew I'd do something professional, but
Right.
at the level I'm doing it, absolutely not.
Yeah. So you went to law school. Where did you go to law school?
University of Nebraska.
University of Nebraska. Okay. So you and I, well, now that we're talking about law schools, you and I have similar thoughts about law school. I went to Chicago Kent College of Law. I'm sure both of our institutions we went to are fine schools, but after you get into the practice of law, when you're in law school, you hear so much about, you want to be at a big firm and they only are hiring from these law schools and you got to get into these law schools because you'll make so much more money. What are your thoughts about law school? Tell our audience, and again, I'll echo your sentiments, but like, what is the importance of where you go to law school, and is there one, and how does it impact your future as a lawyer?
So what I want to say is it's absolutely not important where you go to law school, and 99% of the time that's completely correct. The 1% of the time where it's not correct is if you want to prosecute for the Southern District of New York, or you want to be on SCOTUS, or you want to be a clerk on a federal, the federal, not federal bench, for a federal judge or something like that. Then they really tend to care. Or if it's Manhattan and it's like downtown Manhattan and something like that. But that's way less than 1% of lawyer jobs out there. And on the other 99 plus percent, no one gives a crap. Like, I employ 15 attorneys at any given time. I don't know where essentially any of them went to law school, and I couldn't possibly care less. I
Right,
care very much about how they treat my clients and how they treat other members of the team and things like that. But
right.
no, none of that. And
Yeah,
law schools, and I'm sure we're going to get here. So I'll just start the crapping right now. Law schools are absolutely awful at teaching you anything that you need to know as an attorney. And if you are in law school, just realize that they will never teach you anything useful, and you need to go figure out how to learn useful things on your own.
couldn't have said it better. I mean, you and I both talk about this on LinkedIn, and I'm a firm believer in it too. There's really no curriculum in law school that teaches you how to practice law, that teaches you how to run a law firm, how to grow a law firm. You're studying and memorizing decisions on archaic cases and the foundations of the law, which really have absolutely no relevance or practical application to the practice of any type of law today in modern society. And maybe there's some idea about, how to think and thinking on your feet, but even that I think is all BS if you ask me. But at the end of the day, once you graduate law school, your success as a lawyer is going to be based on your work ethic, how hard you work. What do you want to go the extra mile? How do you communicate with other people? Do you know how to talk to people? Do you know how to negotiate? Do you know how to like appear in front of a judge and act the right way? These things, again, you could be on moot court, but again, none of that teaches you how to practice in real life. And certainly the business aspect of it, which I want to kind of segue into now the business of law. Obviously, you've grown your firm. So you're at law school, you get out of law school. What happens? Do you start your firm right out of law school? Did you get experience otherwise? Let's talk about the growth of your firm and what you attribute to all your success.
Yeah, so I clerked for a year at a district court in Iowa for 6 judges, and I loved it. That was still my favorite job in the law because I just sat down. I got to be with judges all day, and I got to figure out how they thought about things, and I got to write their decisions for them, and they would redline things. And so I really got in a judge's mind, and I wanted to be a litigator, so that was fantastic for me. Loved it. And then after that, I took a job doing insurance defense because this is like 2008 and it's the Great Recession and it was what I could get. And that was the worst job I've ever had in my entire life. Insurance defense is awful and everybody in insurance defense should just get out. It's just,
Right.
save your soul, get out.
Yeah.
And then my wife wanted to get a doctorate. I hated that job and so much that I literally didn't smile for 3 months. And I went to my wife and I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And she said, please quit because you're not the guy I married and this is really tough.
Right.
So quit.
Good.
And she wanted to go get a doctorate at the University of Utah. So I said, cool, let's go do that. We had gone to BYU in Utah before, so
Okay.
we knew the place, and
Sure.
we went back to Utah because we both really enjoyed it. And then I started a law firm because I'd figured out that I'm a terrible employee
Yeah.
and no one was hiring. So no one's
Right.
hiring in general. No
Worst
one was hiring
timing.
good employees, and they
Right.
certainly weren't hiring me. So I
Right.
just decided, okay, let's do this thing, and that's what I did.
So, did you know you wanted to go into family law? And did you start your firm as family law, or you kind of turned it into that? Like, what was your firm like when you first started? It was obviously just you. What was your plan? Were you taking any types of cases, all types of cases? How did you get to where you are with family law?
I took everything that came in the door because I didn't know how to do anything. I figured I would be a criminal defense attorney, but then I did criminal defense and I figured out that I sucked at it. And it just wasn't what I wanted to do. So I had a friend who came in and she needed a divorce because her husband had cheated on her and I needed money. So I stayed up until 3 o'clock the night before I met with her and figured out as much as I could about divorce in Utah. And then we met the next morning at 9:30. She paid me a retainer and I thought, great, let's do this thing. So I did her case and got a really, really good result. And I liked how I felt about it. And I thought, oh, I could do this. So then more people started coming in for that, for divorce. And then I figured out I was really, really good at it. And I enjoyed it. And I thought,
Right.
okay, why don't I just do only the thing that I'm really good at that I enjoy? So that was it. So since about 2011, it's the
Okay.
only thing I've done as an attorney. And I don't know how to do anything else as an
Right.
attorney. Like
Yeah.
literally nothing else.
You and me both. Yeah, my path was a little different. I mean, I started off at another firm doing family law for 7 years and decided it was silly to keep working for someone and who didn't appreciate me and it was silly. So I started my own firm. But anyways, family law is all we know. How did you get your firm to grow? I love hearing different stories from different lawyers. I mean, we're kind of in similar situations as to starting on our own and, being the owners of the firm with, lots of lawyers and focusing strictly on family law. There's probably only a handful of us around the country that are in that situation. But I mean, once you knew that you wanted to do family law, how did you know what to do when it came to marketing or branding or any of that? I mean, I remember when I started my firm, I knew I wanted to market better and have a more of an online presence than my prior firm, who were a bunch of dinosaurs who didn't know anything about that stuff. But I guess, at the beginning of the firm, it's nerve-wracking because one, you don't, you're still learning obviously the law, you're still learning obviously how to run a business. What do you attribute to like your growth and success once you knew you wanted to turn this into Brown family law?
For the first 5 years of the law firm, I was an absolutely terrible businessman and I was a really good lawyer. So I remember in 2015, I won Family Law Lawyer of the Year in Utah as voted on by my peers. And I was the youngest person ever to have won it to that point, and I'm still the youngest person ever to win it.
Yeah.
And that was really cool. But I remember the day after I won the award, I woke up and I had all of the same problems that I had the day before I won the award. So I was still a terrible business person. I was still making like 50 cents on the dollar and all of these things. And I let myself get fat again. I was morbidly obese when I was a kid, and then I got lean, and then
Now you're in great shape.
I tried very hard. So that's very sweet of you. But all these things were they just sucked. And I remember thinking at that point, I really have to change something. Otherwise, everything is going to break down very, very quickly. Like my marriage and everything is going to break down very quickly. So I decided that I was going to learn the business of law. And I just started reading books because that's what I do when I want to learn something.
Yeah.
I start reading books. So I started reading as many books as I possibly could, and then figuring out how to sell and close clients
Right.
and kind of rudimentary marketing, but I was just absolutely awful at it. But I just decided at that point that I wasn't going to live the life that I had lived up to that point, and I was going to live something very different. And this was the way that I could do that, was to figure out the business side of things and the sales and the marketing side. And that's what I did.
Yeah. How quickly did your firm grow? Like when once you kind of got your shit together, you're, know what your plan is, you're learning about the business. Like was that I know that first hire is always like a nerve-wracking experience. You're like, how the hell am I going to support somebody else? I could barely support myself and my family. I remember feeling like that. But then it just becomes like a step and then uneasiness and anxiety that you almost like need to feel as a business owner. But like, I guess, how quickly did the firm grow? And like, was there a point where you're, again, I think all of us in these situations realize that our time's better spent on growing the firm, what they call working on the firm instead of in the firm, working on the business instead of in the business. Was there a point you reached, after you started to grow where you wanted to take a step back? And how quick was that growth to get to that point?
So yeah, when when I decided in 15 that I needed to change everything, the decision was I am going to kind of get out of the day to day of cases, right? So I knew that I wanted to grow. It probably took me, before I grew to a point where I was comfortable kind of backing off of cases, it took me 2 or 3 years after that. So when you make a decision, that's probably the most important thing that you can do, but that doesn't mean that everything's going to change right then, right? You have to learn in order to actually concretize the change and the
Right.
commitment, right? So that's what I spent 2 or 3 years doing. And by the time 2017, 18 rolled around, then I was pretty comfortable with things, making a lot more money, had a couple attorneys. Then when 2019 rolls around, to like 2019, 2020, that COVID period,
Right.
I was doing pretty well. Like I thought I was really hitting stride. And then COVID hit, and I had done enough work that we were really well positioned in the market, and everybody else was not. And everybody else just kind of went away because of COVID. And we stepped in and spent a whole bunch of money and kind of upped our game. And then we just started blowing up when
Yeah.
during that COVID period.
So that's your growth came from COVID. It's funny because my firm was similar. I mean, a lot of firms were kind of, no one's going to the office. Let's break away. We're kind of just like hands off for a while, sit back. I had the same kind of mindset. Like I'm using this as my chance to push forward. It's almost like you're gambling, against everybody else. Like you're shorting everything else, basically. Um, and it sounded like a risk because no one knew what the hell was going on back then. But that was tons of growth. And I don't know if it's related. I mean, COVID obviously had something to do with it. But I mean, I remember growing a ton. And then all of a sudden, you've got all these new lawyers at your firm, and you don't, I mean, it's like in the blink of an eye. Um, so you have what, 15 lawyers around, would you say, right now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what do you attribute to the growth aside from COVID? Like, I mean, was there a specialized type of marketing, branding your firm that your competitors, on a different level, you do better than them? I mean, what do you attribute to your success and the success of the firm? Obviously, you've become probably the biggest family law firm in Utah. I mean, what do you attribute to that?
Yeah, yeah, we're the biggest by far. I've done more divorce in the than anybody in the history of the state of Utah, sadly enough. And
Wow,
I hate divorce. I
that's
hate
that's
divorce.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing.
Think about saying that in Illinois, right?
Yeah, it's
That's nuts.
crazy. It's crazy.
But yeah, so what we attribute it to, I wish I could say that it was the fantastic marketing, but it's not, because I don't think I'm a good marketer. I think I try hard, but I don't think I'm a particularly effective marketer. Where we're really, really good, though, is I decided that I was going to get really excellent at sales and closing. And then because we just had all these people coming in and I didn't know how to sell or close them. And I thought, well, crap, why don't we learn that
Right.
and just not worry about spending extra money on marketing? And so that's what we did. So we are exceptionally good at sales and closing. And that has really driven the growth. And now that's kind of topped off because we're so good at it. So now it's okay. Let's figure out how to be a really, really good marketer, and that's tough. It's tough, and you have to figure all this stuff out again. That because the learning process to become something you're not is hard, and you have to do that in all of these different fields, if you're an entrepreneur, if you lead a law
Right.
firm, you lead it well.
Yeah. That's a good point you brought up. So obviously, marketing's a piece of it. And again, you need people to be coming into the office, and of course, you have to close them. Um, what is your secrets to closing cases? Because I think a lot of lawyers, one, can get people in the door, but they can't close them. And then, of course, at the end of the day, too, you have to do a good job for them. You got to get results. Your reputation's not going to build into something good if you're a shitty lawyer and you don't get the results people want. But I mean, back to the closing, because that, again, another skill that you don't learn in law school, another skill that's just innate to people who know how to talk to people, but it is something that is somewhat teachable. I mean, how do you basically convey your knowledge onto the lawyers in your office about, closing clients, selling your firm to these potential clients, and making sure that they're happy customers at the end of the day?
So it's about figuring out how to do it yourself, right? And then teaching other people to do it. But the way you teach other people to do it and standardize the process is you create scripts. So our intake team, they're just reading scripts, right? I don't need geniuses to do this sort of stuff.
Right.
I need people who read a script really well and are empathic, right?
Right.
Like that's what I need. Yeah, I sat down and I wrote the scripts. Hey, this is the way we sell things with my office manager. We put all this stuff together, and then we train our people and expect them to follow that. And then when the potential clients come in and they sit down with the attorneys, we have another script. It's not, you can't quite script it out as much, but I tell people it's a play, right? It's a play in like 5 acts, and you're just going to take people through the acts of the play. Okay. And then there's a portion where it is memorized, the closing portion where it's memorized. And you just have to expect that people are going to do that. You have to train them on it. But, like you said, most attorneys are fairly good at getting people in the door, and they're terrible at selling them and closing them, but they're actually pretty good at selling them. It's the closing part
Right.
that attorneys just don't understand. So
Right.
selling and closing are two different things.
Right.
Selling is getting somebody to want to buy from you, and that's an emotional thing, right? They have to know, like, and trust you.
Sure.
Okay. And if you can do that, you've sold them. But closing is the logical process of getting somebody to give you money.
Right.
Okay. So that's not an emotional process, it's a logical process. And it's very different. And this is where attorneys have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They go through and they sell, and then they can't close them because they haven't worked out how they're going to address people's concerns or objections when it comes to giving them money, right? They have literally no way of doing it. They have
Right.
no object, which is funny because the entire point of lawyering is to get into a courtroom and anticipate the objections and
Right.
learn how to overcome them. But they don't do that when it comes to closing. So you have to go through and you have to figure those things out. Then you have to write it all down,
Yeah.
right, and memorize those. And when people come up with the objections, you're just rolling through them until they hire you.
That's a great distinction. Selling and closing are really two distinct things that you define perfectly. And I think, again, it's hard to find lawyers who are great lawyers, are great writers, are great researchers, and then are great at the business of law too. Um, so finding those people who, again, it's a lot different to look at it when it's your firm and you're the owner versus the lawyer who's, obviously their job is to, bill hours, collect fees, but it's just when you're not wearing the owner's hat, I feel like it's a different perspective, and it is something that you have to teach. Which just brings me to my next point. Do you find it hard to find good people to work for you? I've always thought, like, yes, I have an amazing group of people and I'm lucky to have every single one of them. But when it comes to, expanding your firm and wanting to grow, I often struggle with, am I able to maintain the same quality of representation by expanding? And if I expand to Michigan, am I going to be able to find the right person? I know I could market there. I know I can get clients there. I know our reputation is already established based on what we've done here. But I often get concerned, even if it's growing here in Chicago or growing outside to another state, um, it's hard to find good people. What do you have the same issues? I mean, I'm sure all employers do one way or another, but especially when it comes to family law. What's your
Yeah,
experience with that?
I absolutely do. So I'll be pretty vulnerable here for a second. So I have troubles with this in Utah, but I can network in Utah, right? Because that's where I'm finding my best people now. Is I just create relationships with other attorneys, and then I'm going and like kifing them when
Yeah,
the time comes.
right.
But we opened an office in Arizona, and I hired somebody in Arizona, right? And I knew I could market in Arizona and get those things, but I hired a charlatan.
Right.
And I let it go on too long. I thought I could change the guy, and I couldn't. Like he just took me for a ride,
Yeah.
and there was no getting over that. So we had to shut down the office in Arizona. And I've learned from that. We're going to open an office in Idaho, and I'm going into that experience very, very differently than I did into the Arizona experience because I had that happen. But I have to be uber convinced that it's a grade A player that I'm hiring in Idaho, right?
Right.
And I'm going to do everything I possibly can to figure that out. And that takes time. And it's really hard if you're not there to network because you're not kind of face to face with that person. You don't know the reputation,
Right.
so on and so forth, which is, I think, one of the reasons that family law attorneys tend not to cross state lines very much. And there are a few of us now that are starting to
Right.
do it,
Right.
but it becomes exponentially harder to find talent when you're not around that talent all the time.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that you hit the nail on the head. You really need, and especially if you're giving someone, the task and job of using your name and taking your brand to a new market, like they have to be a rock star. And if they're not, it's going to make you crazy and it's going to be make you nuts if the quality suffers. So again, that's a huge part. I mean, if we knew we had the perfect people, we could put in one in every single state and be national law firms. It's just not easy. And I'm, even trying with like recruiting firms and headhunters, you just need the right mix. They could have qualifications, but if they don't jive with you, then it just makes it that much more difficult.
Yeah,
Um,
it's tough, man, and it's also going to cost you hundreds of thousands. Like it cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars
yeah.
to
Yeah,
crank
it's an
out in
expensive
Arizona.
proposition for sure. And then if it doesn't work, you're kind of left like, all right, now what the heck do we do? I can get cases, but I got no way to work on them.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I
yeah,
mean, I got with the money that we have now because I run a profitable law firm. I could hire a whole bunch of attorneys kind of wherever and just open shop, but it's finding that right person. Like if I could find five people today in different markets that I trusted as A players,
yeah,
I would absolutely I just take less money,
yeah,
right? I would take less money as a family, and I would go hire those people because I know I'm going to make a whole bunch of cash if I
right,
got a new player. But
exactly. Um,
it's so hard. So hard.
Yep. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up with one topic LinkedIn. A lot of lawyers come up to me. They're like, how do you do so well on LinkedIn? And, why do you think it's so important to be on LinkedIn? And again, we know the answer. It's not necessarily going to bring us direct business, but we're creating a brand. I mean, just, you're a mainstay on LinkedIn. You've got tens of thousands of followers. People listen to what you have to say. You have great content coming out all the time. Tell people who might not understand, like what do you believe is the importance of LinkedIn, not just in our industry, but just branding yourself, obviously the face of a law firm. What do you think LinkedIn is for, and why do you think people should use it?
It depends on how you want to use it. I know people that are there to get clients, and they're very good at it, and that's great. And that's not why I use it. So you and I actually use it differently. So I get on there and I just write stuff that's in my head. So I'm just writing my biography essentially,
Right,
right? And writing the things that are in here. And the reason I'm doing that is when I wanted to get good at the business of law, there was no one around that would talk about it. There was no one who would talk about success. There was no one who would help teach me to turn things around and make more money and so on and so forth. So I get on LinkedIn and that's what I do there is I talk about those types of things.
right,
And I have found it to be incredibly useful to simply give back to my colleagues. I know many, many, many colleagues and many law students who I have personally connected with on LinkedIn and then personally connected with like face to face. And we have these relationships now, but they tell me, hey, look, I make $300,000 or $500,000 more a year now because I listened to what you said and
Right.
because you were actually out there saying it. And these, law students, oh, hey, I learned that I needed to figure things out on my own, and I was able to get a job because of what you talked about. And that to me is the power of LinkedIn is that ability to
Right.
connect, but also to influence. And if you want to use it differently, that's great. But for me, that's the only
Yeah.
reason I use it, and
That's
I
a great.
absolutely adore it.
Yeah, great. I mean, I've had the same experience with people, when you connect with people who are really, who read your posts every day and then they reach out to you and send you a message and you end up, doing a quick Zoom with them or whatever. And then they tell you, you know, you've told me so much valuable information. You've, made me think different things. You've motivated me to leave a job or to think about a law school that, all these things that we hear from behind the scenes on LinkedIn is great. And that's a great use of it. Um, we're already at a half hour here. Anyways, I want to finish up. Tell people how we could find you. I appreciate you being on here. We could talk for days about this, and maybe we'll have some follow-up episodes, I'm sure. But how can people reach you? Marco Brown, how do people reach you? Where do we find you?
Well, you can Google me because I have a weird name, right? And I think I'm the only white dude named Marco Brown. So that's how you do it. My name makes a lot of sense in Italy, but my last name doesn't make any sense in Italy. So you can just Google me and you'll find me. LinkedIn is the other place. You just Google, you can just LinkedIn or search Marco Brown. I'm going to come up. So those are really the two ways.
Easy, easy enough. Well, thanks for being on here. This was great. Again, we'll have to do it again because we could talk for hours, and I know we have in the past and we'll continue to do so. But thanks for being here. You've been a great guest, great insight, great knowledge. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you all next time on All Things Divorce.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.